Hello everyone. I am the Story Sleeper and I'm here to help you tonight. I know you are here to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, get comfortable and relax. Moscow's famous Autumn Lantern Festival awakens the city's storied Arbat district each October, draping narrow cobblestone alleys in a warm glow of ruby-hued lights and enticing the chatter of street vendors across centuries-old facades. Ivan Petrov, a reserved street artist with a head full of swirling ink sketches and fluttering heartbeats, sets up his modest easel beside a stall selling candied apples, determined to capture festival-goers' fleeting expressions. Meanwhile, Anya Sokolova, a clever marketing strategist on break from the nearby media agency, wanders through the crowd in search of inspiration and a steaming cup of spiced tea. As vibrant gourds and russet leaves tumble around their feet and the aroma of cinnamon drifts on a crisp breeze, these two strangers orbit each other like mischievous fireflies, just out of reach. Neither plans to collide. Ivan imagines silently offering a portrait as payment for a taste of caramel, and Anya suspects she might find a spark for an upcoming campaign. But when a clumsy elbow and a misplaced brushstroke send Ivan stumbling into Anya's path, he responds with the most impulsive gesture he can muster, a hurried peck on her cheek meant as apology and hail of colorful apology. The result is not the hush of artful sympathy but a burst of laughter that ripples through the lantern-lit street, setting two lives on a collision course far more animated than either had anticipated. After the spontaneous kiss, Ivan's cheeks flared hotter than the festival lanterns as he scrambled backward, his treasured paintbrush bouncing against the ancient cobblestones. A hush that had fallen over the assembled crowd felt like a spotlight trained on his every mutation of expression. He opened his mouth in a silent, stammering apology, but no words emerged beyond an involuntary squeak that sounded more like a startled sparrow than a seasoned street artist capable of smooth explanations. Anya's eyes widened in surprise, her glossy auburn hair catch each lantern's glow as she pressed a hand to her cheek where his lips had landed. For a tense heartbeat, time stretched thin until her initial shock gave way to a ripple of laughter so unexpected that Ivan almost tumbled off his miniature wooden stool. From the vantage of the nearby cho stand, elderly Mrs. Orlova chuckled and muttered something about young love, recalling her own clandestine adventures decades earlier. Around them, vendors paused mid-sale, a perfume merchant inhaled sharply, a juggler froze mid-flip, as though the kiss had paused the very rhythm of the festival. Someone shouted, half in jest, "Kiss for a ruble," and another took out a coin purse, offering change for what they believed was an impromptu carnival spectacle. Caught between mortification and a spark of unexpected delight, Ivan found himself reaching for his palette, ready to paint this moment onto paper, though he could hardly believe it was real. It took a moment for Anya to recover her composure. She shifted her weight and brushed away a strand of chestnut hair, her lips curling into an amused smile that warmed Ivan's flustered expression. Without thinking, he offered her a freshly sketched caricature, his only means of making amends, hastily drawn with broad strokes of charcoal and bursts of crimson pastel. She studied the portrait, its features exaggerated yet oddly flattering, and nodded assent as if she'd just witnessed a private masterpiece. Passers-by leaned in, curious to catch a glimpse of the chalky rendering, whispering guesses about the pair's supposed engagement. A vendor hawking honey-glazed pastries caught on to the mood, hollering, "Celebrate a kiss with a kiss of honey," before spraying petals like confetti into the air. Anya giggled as petals drifted around her shoulders, and Ivan bent to sweep them up, his fingers trembling with nervous excitement. The scent of spiced tea and roasting chestnuts tangled in the crisp evening air, wrapping the whole scene in an almost magical haze. All around them, a distant trumpeter's fanfare challenged the hum of conversations, and a small tea vendor nearly tipped her cart in a playful attempt to peer at the sketch. Neither Ivan nor Anya noticed when a stray leaf drifted into his charcoal pot, blending shadow and light in a single accidental masterpiece. Ivan cleared his throat and managed to croak out an invitation to join her for a proper apology over a cup of honey tea later that evening. Anya's laughter softened into a shy nod as she accepted his off-kilter proposal, exchanging contact details scrawled on a spare napkin between the honey apple parcels. Emboldened by her genuine curiosity, he packed away his charcoal sticks, mindful of each candy wrapper and stray pastel smudge that threatened to spoil his jacket. Vendors resumed selling their wares, and the troupe of gypsy musicians returned to tuning their balalaikas, though occasional giggles floated on the breeze whenever someone caught sight of the pair's precarious handshake and racing hearts. As they bid each other farewell at the edge of the lantern maze, the scent of burning pine needles mingled with a promise of meeting under brighter moonlight. Ivan's pulse drummed against his ribs, equal parts triumph and terror, while Anya wandered on with a playful glint in her eyes, the crumb of a pastry still lingering in her smile. By the time the crowds drifted toward the main square's final fireworks display, one fact had settled firmly into both minds: what began as an accidental peck would change their evening, and perhaps their lives, more than either had ever anticipated. As Anya turned toward the moonlit courtyard that led back into the laneway of market stalls, she glanced over her shoulder only once, enough to catch the gold thread woven into Ivan's winter cap and the way he hesitated before descending a stone stair. His silhouette, lit by lantern glow, seemed almost contemplative as he cradled his easel under one arm and a sketchbook under the other. The festival's musical troupe resumed a lively tune, tempting dancers to waltz around a nearby fountain, children chased after stray ribbons, and an ice sculptor began carving a frosty swan by lamplight. Yet amid this swirl of activity, two hearts moved to a different rhythm, each buoyed by the mystery of a single touch. As they slipped into separate shadows beneath ancient arches, neither noticed the scrap of napkin fluttering from Ivan's pocket like a white-winged messenger. Unaware that the sketch of Anya's surprised smile and the hastily scribbled phone number would spark a new kind of pursuit, the pair stepped onto diverging paths, both wondering what the night might still have in store. The crisp night air carried the promise of unseen adventures, and even the distant chimes of an old church bell seemed to nod in approval of a story that was only just beginning, when Ivan realized the napkin bearing Anya's sketch and phone number had fluttered from his coat pocket. Panic blossomed in his chest like a winter frost cracking open the street tiles. He spun around just as the last lantern glow flickered at the far end of the alley, spotting a scrap of paper drift toward a puddle reflecting the city's neon signs. Without pause, he dashed forward, scattering startled pedestrians and clanging against an unsuspecting sampler of smoked fish. Around him, vendors cried foul as baskets upended, spilling fruit and tiny wooden trinkets in his wake. Every so often he glanced over his shoulder, desperate for a glimpse of Anya's auburn hair or her playful silhouette. Anya, meanwhile, had paused under a lamppost to reread Ivan's hastily scribbled note. She smiled at the lopsided caricature of herself and tucked the napkin into her coat for safekeeping, only to hear the echo of hurried footsteps racing toward her. She turned and spotted Ivan skidding to a halt, hair tousled, eyes bright with apology and resolve. Without thinking, she darted past his outstretched hand, weaving through a troop of jugglers before disappearing around a corner. Ivan cursed softly but gave chase, mindful of every echo in the cobblestone maze. The pursuit spilled into the heart of the festival, past a stall selling glowing honeycomb candies, through a slender side street where a busker played a rueful ballad on his balalaika, and across the square where the enormous bronze statue of Pushkin loomed like a silent sentinel. Spectators cheered them on, clapping to the rhythm of hurried footsteps, snapping photos that would later flood social media. A playful rival even tossed a handful of confetti at Ivan, shouting, "Catch her, artist," which only spurred him on faster. By then the tide of revelers had split around them like a sea parting for determined pilgrims. Steam rose from a vendor's pot of borscht as Ivan skirted past, nearly slipping in the broth's warmth. Around a corner he nearly collided with a mounted police officer, who raised an eyebrow before returning to his patrol, evidently recognizing the sincerity in Ivan's desperate eyes. At last, both sprinted toward the marble fountain at the festival center, its water dancing in the lamplight like silver sparks. There, amid swirling mist and lantern reflections, Ivan caught Anya's hand and pulled her close, not for another accidental peck but a proper, shy smile exchanged under Moscow's autumn sky. Panting and exhilarated, Ivan and Anya finally slowed their pace beside the marble fountain, its waters shimmering beneath a canopy of lanterns and autumn leaves. He offered a handkerchief, bought from a nearby tobacco stall, to mop her brow, which she took with a laugh that felt warmer than the syrupy glaze on festival pastries. They sank onto the cool stone ledge, sharing stories of childhood antics in Leningrad, first loves gone awry, and the dreams that drove each brushstroke or business proposal. The sudden hush in their conversation made the distant chatter and flute melodies seem like a gentle lullaby. Moonlight slipped between branches overhead, painting silver streaks across Anya's features as she confessed how often she had wandered the Arbat district for inspiration, yet never expected to find it in the form of a blushing artist with charcoal-dusted fingertips. Ivan admitted his fascination with capturing laughter more than solemn portraits, but tonight had taught him how unpredictable inspiration could be. Every shared glance tightened the thread between them, weaving something more intimate than ink or memory. They ordered 2 cups of spiced tea from an unseen vendor, savoring the sweet warmth as if it were a rare elixir. Steam curled upward, framing their reflections in the rippling fountain water. With each sip, the embarrassment of the earlier kiss softened into something patient and sincere. When Anya placed her hand over Ivan's, he caught it and held it briefly, marveling at its gentle warmth. Their laughter subsided into comfortable silence, broken only by the distant chime of a bell marking the end of the evening's final performance. As the festival lights dimmed and the crowd began to disperse, Ivan leaned forward and offered a gentle, respectful kiss on Anya's fingertips, sealing a night written in charcoal and candlelight. She responded with a quiet smile and a promise to meet him again, this time with proper introductions and no misplaced brushes. Hand in hand, they walked away from the fountain, leaving behind the echo of laughter and the promise of many more accidental sparks yet to come. By the time the lanterns were extinguished and only the distant glow of streetlights lingered, Ivan and Anya understood that what began as a fumbling, accidental peck had blossomed into a memory neither would ever forget. The night's laughter, the unplanned chase through Moscow's alleys, and the shared warmth of spiced tea had penned a story more vibrant than any single sketch. As they parted with a final wave beneath a sky suddenly free of festival lights, both carried home a sense of wonder and anticipation. For Ivan, it was the first time his art felt truly alive. For Anya, it was the sweetest diversion her busy schedule had ever offered. And though the Autumn Lantern Festival would return again next year, neither stranger could be certain that destiny would intertwine their paths so playfully a second time. Yet in their hearts, they both knew that in the swirl of falling leaves and flickering firelight, they had discovered something far more enduring than a momentary kiss, the genuine spark of a new romance waiting to be sketched into tomorrow's chapters. Once upon a time, in a picturesque village nestled among the rolling hills of the French countryside, there lived a young woman named Belle. She was not only renowned for her striking beauty but also for her keen intellect and insatiable love for books. Belle's passion for reading set her apart in a village that valued physical work and practical skills over intellectual pursuits. She often found herself lost in tales of adventure, romance, and far-off lands, yearning for more than the provincial life she led. Her father, Maurice, was an eccentric but kind-hearted inventor, constantly tinkering with his whimsical creations in their cozy cottage. One fateful day, Maurice set off on a journey to present his latest invention at a fair in a neighboring town, hoping to bring prosperity to their humble life. Belle, ever the supportive daughter, bid him farewell with a mix of hope and worry. As Maurice journeyed through the thick, misty forest, he lost his way and was caught in a sudden and violent storm. Seeking refuge, he stumbled upon a grand and ominous castle hidden deep within the woods. Maurice hesitated at the imposing gates, but the harsh winds and cold rain left him with no choice. As he ventured inside, the castle seemed deserted, a place frozen in time. He found warmth by a crackling fireplace and, to his surprise, encountered a strange assortment of talking objects, a candelabra named Lumiere, a clock named Cogsworth, and a teapot named Mrs. Potts, among others. These enchanted servants were kind and hospitable, offering Maurice shelter and food. However, their master, a fearsome beast, was not as welcoming. The beast, once a handsome prince, had been cursed by an enchantress for his arrogance and lack of compassion. The spell transformed him into a monstrous creature and his servants into household objects. The enchantress had left behind a single rose, warning that the curse would only be lifted if the beast could learn to love and be loved in return before the last petal fell. Upon discovering Maurice's presence, the beast flew into a rage, believing the old man was a trespasser seeking to mock him. He imprisoned Maurice in the castle's tower, ignoring the pleas of Lumiere and Cogsworth for mercy. Back in the village, Belle grew increasingly worried when her father did not return. Fearing for his safety, she set off on her horse, Philippe, determined to find him. Philippe, sensing Maurice's trail, led Belle through the treacherous forest to the castle gates. Belle was shocked by the eerie grandeur of the castle and its haunting atmosphere. Undeterred, she ventured inside, where she was guided by Lumiere and Cogsworth to the tower where her father was held captive. The sight of her ailing father filled Belle with a fierce resolve. When the beast confronted her, she bravely offered herself in exchange for her father's freedom, despite her fear of the monstrous figure before her. The beast, seeing an opportunity to possibly break the curse, agreed. He released Maurice, who was sent back to the village with a magical carriage, while Belle remained as the beast's prisoner. Belle's new life in the castle was filled with both fear and fascination. The enchanted objects did their best to make her feel welcome, sharing stories of their lives before the curse and the true nature of the beast. As days turned into weeks, Belle's initial terror gave way to curiosity. She discovered a magnificent library within the castle, filled with books of every genre and language. This gift from the beast was a gesture of goodwill, and it touched Belle deeply, for she had never seen so many books in her life. The beast, on the other hand, was captivated by Belle's intelligence and spirit. He struggled with his temper and self-loathing, finding it difficult to believe that anyone could ever love him. However, Belle's presence brought a warmth to the castle that had long been absent. They spent hours discussing books, exploring the castle grounds, and slowly, a friendship blossomed. Belle's compassionate nature began to uncover the beast's hidden kindness and vulnerability. One evening, During a lavish dinner, the Beast awkwardly tried to eat with utensils, amusing Belle and making her laugh genuinely for the first time since her arrival. Emboldened by this moment of connection, the Beast invited Belle to a dance in the grand ballroom. Belle wore a stunning golden gown, and the Beast dressed in formal attire. As they danced, they felt a growing bond, a connection that transcended the physical. The enchanted servants watched with bated breath, hoping that Belle could indeed be the one to break the curse. Despite the growing affection between them, Belle missed her father dearly. Sensing her longing, the Beast gave her a magical mirror that could show her anything she wished to see. When Belle looked into the mirror, she saw her father, lost and ill in the forest. Overcome with concern, she asked the Beast to let her go to him. Although it pained him to do so, the Beast agreed, releasing her from her promise. He also gave her the mirror, a token to remember him by, and a way to see him whenever she wished. Belle hurried back to the village and found Maurice, bringing him home and nursing him back to health. However, her return stirred jealousy and suspicion among the villagers, especially from Gaston, a handsome but arrogant hunter who had long sought Belle's hand in marriage. Gaston had always been dismissive of Belle's intelligence and interests, viewing her only as a prize to be won. When Maurice spoke of Belle's captivity and the Beast, Gaston saw an opportunity to rid himself of a rival and win Belle's favor. He convinced the villagers that the Beast was a monstrous threat that needed to be eliminated. Despite Belle's pleas, Gaston rallied the villagers to storm the castle, painting the Beast as a danger to their community. Armed with torches and weapons, the mob marched through the forest, intent on destroying the Beast. Belle, horrified, tried to stop them but was locked in her own home by Gaston and his accomplices. With the help of Maurice, she managed to escape and rushed to the castle, hoping to prevent a tragedy. As the mob approached, the Beast, heartbroken by Belle's departure and believing he would never be loved, had fallen into despair. He made no effort to defend himself, even as Gaston and the villagers breached the castle. The enchanted servants did their best to fend off the attackers, but Gaston fought his way to the Beast. In the ensuing battle, the Beast initially remained passive, resigned to his fate. However, when Belle arrived and called out to him, he found the strength to fight back. The confrontation between Gaston and the Beast reached a deadly climax on the castle's rooftop. Gaston, consumed by jealousy and rage, managed to wound the Beast. However, in his arrogance, Gaston lost his balance and fell to his death. The Beast, gravely injured, collapsed as Belle rushed to his side. She cradled him, tears streaming down her face, and confessed her love for him just as the last petal of the enchanted rose fell. For a moment, all was still, and it seemed as though the curse would remain unbroken. But then, a miraculous transformation began. The Beast's body was enveloped in a warm, golden light, and he was lifted into the air. Belle watched in awe as the Beast transformed back into a handsome prince. The curse was lifted not only from him but from the entire castle. The enchanted objects returned to their human forms, and the once dreary castle was restored to its former splendor. The prince, now free from the curse, looked at Belle with gratitude and love. He explained how her bravery and kindness had not only saved him but had also redeemed him. Belle and the prince returned to the village, where they were greeted with amazement and joy. The villagers, who had been led astray by fear and ignorance, came to see the prince and Belle as symbols of the transformative power of love and understanding. Belle and the prince were married in a grand celebration at the castle, with people from both the village and neighboring lands in attendance. The once distrusting villagers now celebrated the union, having witnessed the power of true love. Belle and the prince ruled the land with wisdom and compassion, ensuring that the lessons of kindness and looking beyond appearances were passed down through the generations. And so, Belle and her prince lived happily ever after, a testament to the belief that love, in its purest form, can overcome even the darkest of curses and the most daunting of challenges. The story of Beauty and the Beast became a cherished tale, reminding all who heard it that beauty lies within and that true love sees beyond the surface. Amid the rolling hills of medieval France, where orchards scented the air with sweet blossoms and the stones of narrow village streets echoed with the soft calls of merchants, a young woman named Belle dreamed beyond her humble surroundings. Gifted with an insatiable curiosity and a boundless compassion, she sought solace among the pages of her beloved books, escaping into worlds of wonder and adventure. Yet in that same kingdom, hidden behind ivy-clad walls and shrouded by moonlight's silver veil, stood an ancient castle, its turrets casting long shadows over the tangled forest. It was said that inside dwelled a fearsome beast, a prince cursed by magic for the vanity of his heart, doomed to his monstrous form until true love could break the spell. When Belle's father, a kind-hearted merchant, accidentally trespassed within those gates, she embarked on a journey that would test her courage, reshape her destiny, and reveal the extraordinary truth that beauty is not a gift of appearance but a treasure of the soul. Drawn by love stronger than fear, Belle would learn that the heart's hidden grace could tame any monster, and that inner light could break the darkest enchantment. This is the story of beauty and courage intertwined, set against a backdrop of flickering torchlight, echoing corridors, and rose petals carried on a midnight breeze. Step beyond the castle's shadow and discover a tale as fresh as dawn, where true love's gentle power shines brighter than any spell. In the heart of a small provincial town on the edge of the Loire Valley, Belle lived among fields of golden wheat that swayed in the gentle morning breeze. Her world was defined by the warm light of her father's modest bookshop, where shelves bowed under the weight of countless stories waiting to be discovered. Each dawn, she rose before the sun to turn dusty pages and lose herself in tales of distant lands, noble quests, and the triumph of love over fear. Villagers admired her for a kindness that rivaled the beauty of her gentle features, yet she longed for more than the simple comforts of her routine life. Belle's father, Maurice, was a hard-working merchant with weathered hands and an ever-hopeful heart, whose love for his daughter surpassed any treasure he could trade. Armed with a leather satchel and a promise to return with rare wares, he set off on a journey toward the capital, where rumors of silk and spices danced upon every market breeze. But fate had other plans, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, Maurice found himself lost in a forest as thick with secrets as the pages of Belle's cherished books. Abrupt branches scratched his coat as an unseen presence seemed to guide him deeper among gnarled oaks and flickering shadows. When he stumbled upon an ancient gate entwined with ivy, curiosity bore him forward despite the chill in the air and the warnings of his own caution. Beyond the grand threshold lay a castle shrouded in moonlight, its stone walls alive with the pulse of enchantment and a magic older than anything he had ever known. Roses as crimson as blood bloomed along cobbled paths, their petals luminous under a silvery sky, beckoning him toward an unseen destiny. In wonder, he plucked one such rose to carry as a gift for Belle, unaware that this simple act would set a powerful spell into motion. No sooner had his fingers touched the velvety petals than a mighty beast emerged, his roar echoing through empty halls and pruning the air with feral anger. Towering and twisted by sorcery, the creature's eyes glowed with sorrow as much as with rage, revealing a trapped soul behind monstrous features. Before Maurice could beg for mercy, the beast's cold voice promised doom unless another would take his place, and through growing darkness, he was cast out without delay. When word of her father's mysterious disappearance reached Belle's ears, she knew a sacrifice awaited, for her love outweighed any fear that might seize her heart. Without hesitation, she donned a simple cloak, gathered her father's maps, and followed his faint trail of footprints into the forest's haunting shadows. Moonlight guided her steps through twisting undergrowth, and night creatures hushed their calls as if sensing her determined spirit. At last, Belle stood before the ivy-clad castle gates, each wrought iron bar like the ribs of a sleeping giant beneath the weight of forgotten spells. Summoning all her courage, she flung them open, stepping onto the dew-kissed courtyard where stone gargoyles watched her every move. In the great hall, flickering torches cast golden light upon tapestries that whispered stories of grandeur, love, and loss across centuries. The beast awaited upon a marble dais, his silhouette immense and shaded by sorrow's heavy cloak, but his eyes sharpened as Belle approached. There was a dangerous power in his gaze, yet Belle saw beyond the snarling teeth to a flicker of loneliness aching behind every growl. With a voice both trembling and resolute, she offered herself in exchange for her father's life, placing her hand on the cold stone floor beneath the beast's gaze. A hush fell like fallen snow as the beast considered her plea, torn between hunger for revenge and a strange respect for her selfless act. At length, a low rumble reverberated through the hall, and the beast granted Belle's request, clutching the wilted rose in a clawed hand stained by sorrow. Chains clattered behind her as she was led through long, torchlit corridors toward quarters more lavish than any she had known. Velvet drapes hung heavy with secrets, and the soft glow of enchanted candles filled the air with warmth that belied the castle's grim legend. Even in captivity, she sensed the pulse of hidden magic, a force as tender and unpredictable as human love itself. And so began Belle's odyssey within enchanted walls, where her bravery would be tested and where a beast's monstrous form might conceal a heart yearning to be seen. The first dawn in captivity found Belle in a grand chamber where stained glass windows let sunlight pool in vibrant colors across the marble floor. She awoke to hushed whispers of servants unseen, invisible hands delivering fresh bread and fragrant tea in silver trays. Curiosity propelled her into hidden passages where corridors opened onto libraries stacked with rare volumes bound in leather and gold gilt. Each evening, the beast summoned her for supper in a candlelit dining hall, where coarse roars softened into polite grunts as he listened to her gentle voice. Though his manners were rough, he demonstrated a desire to please, moving plates with careful attention that belied his fearsome form. Belle responded with gratitude and conversation about the novels she treasured, her words shaping a fragile bridge between two unlikely souls. Over time, laughter threaded the castle air as the beast attempted to mimic her favorite passages, his guttural voice cracking into endearing uncertainty. In moments of quiet reflection, he would retreat to a tall window to gaze upon his reflection, haunted by the curse that stole his humanity. And Belle, whose heart brimmed with empathy, began to see every scar etched into his form as evidence of a life worth reclaiming. She discovered hidden wings of compassion within herself, nurturing the tulips and roses that once marked the curse's origin with whispered hopes. As days folded into weeks, their worlds intertwined, her resilience kindled his hope, and his responsibility sharpened her courage. The castle's corridors no longer felt like prison walls, but a labyrinth of possibility where two souls could find solace in the shadows. Beneath vaulted ceilings and amid dancing candlelight, an unspoken promise grew, one that fused her destiny to his and challenged the magic that held him bound. Belle began to explore the castle's endless halls, each corridor unfolding like the pages of a grand story waiting to be read. Room after room revealed treasures of forgotten artistry, gilded mirrors that reflected slivers of magic, silken draperies that whispered with hidden life, and tapestries that chronicled ancient legends. In the east wing, she discovered a library where shelves climbed toward a domed ceiling adorned with painted constellations. Sunlight streamed through arched windows, illuminating dust motes that danced among well-worn manuscripts bound in velvet and gold leaf. Here, she found comfort, losing herself in tales of far-off kingdoms and daring heroes, her laughter echoing softly between the stacks. It was amid these quiet hours that the beast first offered her a seat beside him at a carved oak desk, his rough claw gently pushing a leather volume toward her. Though his presence could inspire fear, Belle sensed a private vulnerability in his bowed head and the tremor of his hands as he turned the pages. As she read aloud, her voice wove melodies that soothed the beast's restless spirit, and for a moment the castle fell silent in reverence. When twilight arrived, Belle discovered a secret garden sheltered by glass walls, where frost-kissed roses bloomed long after winter's first snowfall. She wandered among marble fountains and lantern-lit pathways, feeling the castle's enchantment pulse with every breath of crisp evening air. The beast watched from a distance at first, his silhouette placed between flickering torches, but as her footsteps echoed he stepped forward, curious and cautious. Together they lingered beneath arbors draped in electric blue wisteria, sharing stories of their pasts with voices soft as turning petals. Belle spoke of her childhood by the river, of the gentle hush of dawn among her father's orchard trees, and of her dreams beyond the horizon. The beast confessed the loneliness that had hollowed his heart since his cursed transformation, revealing truths he had never spoken in such tenderness. In the garden's quiet glow, two souls discovered a fragile companionship, rooted in mutual respect and nurtured by the power of sincere conversation. Over the following weeks, Belle's influence began to reshape the castle's atmosphere, infusing warmth into corridors once cold with regret. The Beast, compelled by her gentle guidance, practiced civility at the long dining table, arranging platters of steaming fruits and fine cheeses with newfound care. Chalices of spiced wine trembled in his grasp as he attempted to master the art of conversation, his gruff voice softening each time her eyes met his. In response, Belle shared lessons of kindness and empathy, teaching him the simple joy of reading poetry by candlelight and listening with an open heart. Each lesson forged trust, and the castle walls seemed to melt away with every genuine smile they exchanged. The staff, once fearful of their master's temper, gradually revealed themselves in the flicker of lantern light to offer subtle nods of encouragement. Invisible hands unraveled heavy draperies to welcome fresh air, and chandeliers sparkled brighter as if in celebration of a changing spirit. Belle's compassion also extended to the castle inhabitants, a silent valet whose broken leg Belle bandaged by candlelight, and a gentle cook whose stories of distant homelands filled the kitchens with laughter. In the evenings, they danced in the grand ballroom beneath a glass dome that revealed a tapestry of stars, their shadows intertwined upon the polished marble floor. Belle's dress of soft blue silk caught the candlelight as the Beast guided her with cautious grace, each turn a testament to the trust they built. No music played but the soft beat of thundering hooves and the whispered hum of enchantment threading through the rafters. When the Beast slipped, Belle steadied him, her hand finding his rough paw in an unspoken promise of support. It. Gentle voice. Yet her thoughts drifted constantly back to the castle and the promise she had left behind, a bond sealed by sacrifice and unwavering compassion. When her heart could bear separation no longer, she seized a moonlit night to return, guided by the rose's silent fragrance carried on the breeze. The castle, bathed in silver light, opened its gates without a sound, as if welcoming a prodigal soul home. And in the stillness of dawn, Belle's silhouette crossed the threshold once more, determined to confront the magic that bound her beloved Beast before it was too late. Beneath the same stained glass windows that once bore witness to their growing bond, Belle found the Beast pacing in the castle's grand hall, his form illuminated by the first blush of dawn. His eyes, usually fierce with determination, glistened with unspoken hope as she stepped into the light, Rose still clasped in trembling hands. A hush fell over the assembled servants and silent corridors, as though the castle itself held its breath for the moment to come. Belle approached him slowly, her gaze steady and her voice clear as she spoke the words she had rehearsed in the solitude of distant nights. "I love you," she said, the confession carrying on a breath as fragile and powerful as rose petals caught by a spring breeze. His heart, bound by ancient magic and regret, thudded within the cage of his chest as her vow echoed through the vaulted space. For an instant, shadows flickered across his furred features, and then a warmth blossomed in his amber eyes like sunrise breaking winter's chill. A surge of magic rippled through the castle, candles flickered, and the air grew thick with the scent of blooming flowers long thought lost to frost. Echoing heartbeats. When the glow subsided, where the Beast once stood was a prince clad in simple finery, his eyes bright with gratitude and something more profound. He knelt before Belle, his transformation complete yet his humility more genuine than any he had known as a prince of old. The castle walls, freed from enchantment, seemed to sigh with relief as portraits came to life, and laughter replaced the echoes of solitude. Belle's heart swelled with joy, knowing that true love's gentle power had shattered a curse that began with a vanity long ago forgotten. In that moment, the boundary between human and magic dissolved, and the future unfolded before them like a rose opening to the sun. Word of the prince's return and the castle's restoration spread quickly through the valley, carried upon wind-whispered rumors and joyous exclamations. Servants and guests alike emerged from hidden chambers, their faces alight with disbelief and relief as they beheld the once beastly figure standing tall and human once more. Belle's father, heart brimming with pride and gratitude, was given a hero's welcome as he entered the hall to embrace his daughter and meet the restored prince. The courtyard, which had stood silent and foreboding for years, bloomed anew with spring's earliest tulips and daffodils, their colors brighter than any tapestry. Musicians took their places beneath ancient oaks, filling the air with melodies of celebration and the promise of days unburdened by shadows. At the prince's invitation, villagers feasted in long tables draped with white linen, sharing bread and laughter where once only silence reigned. Belle watched as the prince moved among his people with genuine warmth, his respect for every soul a testament to the compassion she inspired in him. In private chambers, the prince presented Belle with a simple gold circlet, a symbol not of royalty but of the bond forged between two courageous hearts. She placed it upon her hair with a smile that spoke of partnership and shared destiny rather than crowns or titles. Together, they restored the castle to its former splendor, repaying the enchantment that once bound them with living echoes of joy. Each room became a testament to unity, where art, music, and literature flourished under patronage born from kindness rather than vanity. And in the warmth of the prince's renewed light, Belle found a home not defined by walls but by the love they nurtured together. The curse was broken, but in its place remained a deeper magic, a covenant of hearts that would never fade. As evening stars blanketed the sky, Belle and her prince stood upon the highest terrace, gazing beyond the horizon toward a future unimagined yet promising. Seasons changed, and the kingdom flourished under their benevolent rule, guided by the lessons of empathy and courage they had learned within enchanted walls. Belle continued to read borrowed books to the people, hosting gatherings in the castle's grand library where voices of diverse stories found a home. The prince, ever mindful of his own journey, walked among his subjects with humility, listening to their hopes and fears before ever making a decree. Together, they transformed the once isolated castle into a vibrant center of art, learning, and community, where laughter echoed through hallways that once held only sorrow. Roses, symbols of the broken curse, thrived in gardens both inside and out, tended lovingly by Belle and her devoted subjects. It was said that the castle walls themselves held the echoes of their love, a melody that could be heard by those who walked its halls with pure hearts. On the eve of each spring, the kingdom celebrated the Festival of Petals, scattering rose blossoms across riverbanks to honor the magic of transformation. Belle and the prince would dance beneath lanternlit arches, their steps in harmony with a grace born of mutual respect and boundless hope. And although the story of the beast's curse had begun in vanity and fear, it had concluded in wisdom and redemption found within a loving heart. Travelers from distant lands spoke of a realm where true beauty was measured by compassion rather than appearance, and where love carried the power to heal all wounds. In the echo of Belle's laughter and the prince's gentle guidance, the kingdom discovered that the greatest enchantment resided not in spells but in kind deeds. The legacy of their union endured through generations, a timeless reminder that inner beauty and sacrifice could break even the darkest of spells. Every rose in the garden told their tale, petals whispering of a beauty that transcends flesh and fur. For in their story, the world learned that true love is not bound by form or fear but by the courage to see with the heart's truest vision. And so, the tale of Beauty and the Beast lived on, a beacon of hope for all who believe that love's light can conquer any darkness. In a kingdom once veiled by fear and solitude, the tale of Belle and the Beast emerges as a celebration of the heart's enduring power to see beyond the surface. Their journey reminds us that true beauty lies not in outward form but in acts of kindness, the courage to sacrifice for another, and the grace to forgive our own imperfections. Belle's unwavering compassion and the Beast's willingness to change teach us that love can break the strongest of chains and soften the hardest of hearts. Through shared curiosity, laughter, and gentle understanding, they forged a bond that transcended magic and defied expectations. Today, their story echoes across time, inviting us all to look deeper, embrace empathy, and cherish the hidden light within ourselves and each other. May we carry their example in our daily lives, choosing compassion over judgment, and believing always that genuine love can transform the darkest realms into places of hope, beauty, and infinite possibility. Let the roses in your life symbolize the wonder of transformation, and may this timeless tale inspire you to seek the beauty that lives within every soul. In the farthest reaches of ancient Ireland, where mists curled around mossy stones and the music of streams danced through emerald woods, there lived a tale older than the language spoken by its people. This is a story not only of love, but of longing that transcends the bonds of time, the envious wrath of immortals, and the fragile beauty of mortal life. At its heart is Etain, a woman whose allure surpassed that of the fairest summer dawn, her presence stirring the deepest desires and the fiercest rivalries among gods and men alike. Born in the luminous halls of the Tuatha De Danann, the immortal tribe who walked the hills and meadows before humans ever tilled the soil, Etain was the embodiment of grace and gentle radiance. Yet fate, whimsical and unyielding, would cast her far from the splendors of the gods and into a world defined by suffering, hope, and transformation. Her journey would cross lifetimes and kingdoms, embroiling powerful rulers, shape-shifting sorcerers, and the elemental spirits that whispered through Ireland's ancient groves. This is not a tale for the faint-hearted or the lovelorn, for it entwines heartbreak with hope, sacrifice with reward, and paints love as both a blessing and a torment. Through every twist of her destiny, Etain remains both goddess and woman, her spirit unbroken even as the world around her shifts like the restless Irish weather. In the valleys where whitethorn blossoms fall, where the wind carries secrets from the otherworld, Etein's story lingers, its echoes promising that even in the darkest moments, beauty and love may yet be reborn. Etein's birth was a marvel even among the Tuatha De Danann, for she seemed woven from sunlight and laughter. Daughter of Ailil, she was cherished for her kind heart and beauty that rivaled the spring dawn. In the immortal courts, her presence stirred both joy and envy. None admired her more deeply than Midir, lord of Bree Leith, a noble among gods, known for wisdom and a longing for the extraordinary. Their love unfolded softly, in secret glades where rivers sang and every leaf seemed to tremble with anticipation. Midir courted Etein with music played on silver harps and whispered words beneath the ancient trees. In time, they wed, their union celebrated with feasts and blessings. But happiness, even among immortals, is seldom without peril. Midir's first wife, Fuamnak, watched with cold fury as her place in his heart was usurped. A sorceress of great power and bitter pride, she conjured enchantments woven from jealousy and vengeance. Her magic was subtle at first, winds that snatched away Etein's laughter, shadows that crept into her dreams. When these failed, Fuamnaka's wrath turned fierce. With spells and ancient words, she summoned a storm that lifted Etein from Bree Leith, swirling her away through forests and valleys. For 7 years Etein wandered, transformed by Fuamnaka's sorcery into a jewel-bright pool of water, then a dragonfly glimmering above its surface. Seasons passed, and still Etein fluttered from place to place, never resting, never aging, tormented by loneliness as she drifted on every wind. Sometimes she hovered near village fires and heard the laughter of mortals, sometimes she brushed the petals of wildflowers, longing to feel the earth as a woman once more. But Fuamnaka's magic knew no mercy. In a wild squall, Eteina's dragonfly was blown into a goblet of mead at the home of Ader, chief of Ulster. There, she was swallowed by Ader's wife, and so began her passage back into mortal life. Born again as a human child, Etein grew among the people of Ulster, radiant and gentle, her otherworldly grace lingering in her every gesture. She knew nothing of her divine origins, only that she dreamed sometimes of music in the woods and a love that waited beyond memory. Word of her beauty spread like wildfire through Ireland's courts and clans. Suitors traveled for days to Ulster in hopes of winning her hand. She remained distant, as if listening for a voice only she could hear. Kings sent gifts, jewels and horses, promises of kingdoms, but Etein's heart was untouched, her gaze always searching the horizon. In those days, mortals whispered that she had the soul of a swan, graceful, elusive, fated for sorrow. In the kingdom of Tara, high among rolling green hills, ruled Eochaid Aram, a king renowned for his wisdom and hunger for glory. When news of Etein's beauty reached his court, he felt a yearning unlike any he had known. Determined to win her, Eochaid journeyed to Ulster with a retinue bearing gifts and silver-tongued poets. His arrival was heralded by banners snapping in the wind, musicians filling the air with hopeful songs. Ader welcomed Eochaid's suit, and Etein, curious and gentle, agreed to meet the king. She found him noble, fair in judgment, and she saw in his eyes a longing for something beyond power. Though her heart echoed with lost dreams, Etein chose to wed Eochaid, believing perhaps that in mortal love she would find peace. Their wedding was a spectacle, feasts lasting 7 days, bards composing verses for the ages, all Tara alight with celebration. For a time, Etein knew contentment. She tended the king's gardens, listened to the river's song, and watched stars wheel above the hill of Tara. Yet, in quiet moments, she felt a tug within, a sense that her story was unfinished, her heart waiting for something she could not name. Meanwhile, in the hidden mounds of Bree Leith, Mitter mourned. The world of mortals had grown dim to him, but Etaine's memory burned bright. He wandered the otherworld in sorrow, seeking counsel from druids and wise women, hoping to find a way to reach her. At last, he learned that Etaine lived again, but as a mortal queen at Terra. Driven by love that defied the boundaries of death and time, Mitter journeyed to Terra disguised as a nobleman. He came not as a rival, but as a challenger in the king's famous games. Enchanted welcomed all comers to Terra's halls, chess players, horse racers, men of wit and skill. When Mitter asked to play Fairytale, the ancient Irish game of kings, Enchanted agreed. The contest lasted deep into the night, Mitter matching the king's every move. At first, they played for sport. But as Mitter began to win, he asked for wagers, first gold, then chariots, and finally a boon of his own choosing. Enchanted, proud and confident, agreed. When Mitter revealed his prize, one embrace and a single kiss from Etaine, the court erupted in outrage. Yet a king's word was law. Enchanted was bound by honor to grant Mitter his due, but he refused to allow the meeting within his sight. So Mitter waited a month and returned to Terra during a great feast. In the torchlit hall, Etaine saw him, a stranger with eyes like a stormy sea, his presence stirring memories long forgotten. Mitter spoke words only her heart could understand, and in that instant, the world changed. He drew her into a dance before the assembled nobles. As they spun, wind rushed through the chamber, carrying them aloft, out over the fields and away from Terra. In a blink, they vanished before the astonished king and his court. The wind carried Etaine and Mitter far from Terra, over rivers and woods, through veils of mist to the hidden realm of Bree Leith. There, Etaine remembered her former life, the music of immortal courts, Mitter's gentle eyes, the echo of love unbroken by time. She wept for all she had lost, but found solace in Mitter's arms once more. For a season they lived in secret happiness, but joy in the otherworld is never untouched by sorrow. Enchanted, consumed by anger and grief, vowed to reclaim his queen. He gathered druids and wise men, searching for portals into the fairy mounds. Night after night, his men dug at Bree Leith's earth until at last they broke through to the otherworld. Mitter, unwilling to see blood spilled, offered Enchanted a challenge. If the king could identify Etaine among 50 women, each identical in face and form, he could claim her back. The women appeared before Enchanted, their hair gleaming in the fairy light, each movement echoing Etaine's own grace. Yet only one bore a single tear trailing down her cheek, a silent sign of her sorrow. Enchanted chose her, believing he had won. But fate is seldom so simple. For the woman he claimed was not truly Etaine, but a glamour conjured by Mitter's magic. The real Etaine remained hidden, her heart torn between two worlds. In the days that followed, Etaine struggled with her identity. Was she goddess or mortal? Beloved wife or pawn of fate? Mitter, understanding her anguish, offered her freedom, to choose her path, whether with him or among mortals. Etaine, her spirit tempered by suffering and longing, made her decision. She would live as both, embracing her mortal life but carrying the otherworld within her. With Mitter's blessing, she returned to Terra, bearing wisdom gained from her journey. Enchanted welcomed her with open arms, his pride softened by loss. Etaine's presence brought peace to the kingdom. She became a symbol of hope and resilience, a bridge between mortals and immortals. Though her story was marked by sorrow and longing, Etaine's spirit remained unbroken. She loved with a heart both ancient and new, her memory lingering wherever wildflowers bloomed or the mist rolled in from distant hills. In every generation, the tale of Etain was whispered by firesides, a promise that love, once kindled, could never truly die. Etain's story endures because it speaks to the fragile beauty of love and the resilience required to pursue it through trials both magical and mundane. She is more than a goddess caught in the currents of fate, she is every soul who has been exiled from happiness and found their way back, transformed but unbroken. Across Ireland's hills and hollowed stones, her name is spoken with reverence, a reminder that even when love seems lost or hope withers under sorrow, a new beginning waits, shimmering just beyond the edge of memory. The wind that once carried Etain across kingdoms still stirs the grass on ancient barrows, the rivers sing her name as they wander from mountain to sea. In every heart that dares to love against the odds, Etain's spirit lives on, reborn with each dawn, proof that destiny is not merely a chain of sorrow, but a circle where beauty and hope are always renewed. Nestled deep within the ancient spruce groves of Sweden lies a hidden realm where mortal toil and fairy mischief converge. Under a pale dawn sky, dewy moss glistens on gnarled oaks and a hush drapes the forest, carrying whispers of forgotten magic. In the stone cottage at the wood's edge, young Eleanor rises before sunrise, longing for life beyond the plough. Each morning she glimpses Prince Anders as he rides through silver mist, her heart quickening at the fall of his banner. Yet courtesy binds his greetings and rumors swirl of an enchantment that guards his favor. As twilight deepens, tales drift to her window, stories of the three fays, lunar and dawn maidens who wander moonlit paths to aid the pure of heart. Clutching a rune-forged pendant, Eleanor steps into the dim wood, guided by firefly lanterns and the promise of an unearthly encounter. She breathes in pine resin and night flowers, senses alive with hope. The scent of elderflowers drifts on cool air, and she can almost hear the fae's laughter carried on a breeze that rustles silver leaves. Every step echoes with centuries of folklore, as if the forest itself holds its breath, waiting to see if a humble maiden's courage can triumph over royal indifference and ancient curse. Through winding glades, 3 pinpricks of ethereal light beckon, each a promise of courage, compassion, and wisdom. Tonight, Eleanor embarks on her true journey, trusting that the fae's blessings will unlock her destiny and win her prince's heart beneath Swedish stars. Eleanor stepped into the forest's twilight hush, her lantern's glow flickering like a timid heartbeat against the encroaching darkness that draped ancient spruce and silver birch alike. Soft moss gave beneath her boots, releasing the sweet, earthy scent of pine resin and damp earth, as if the wood itself exhaled a welcome. Overhead, 1,000 fireflies emerged from shadow, their tiny lights weaving ribbons of luminescence that danced on the cool air. The path she thought she knew dissolved into winding trails strewn with fallen leaves that whispered her name. Somewhere beyond, she sensed a presence deeper, older than any forest spirit she had heard in bedtime tales. Each breath filled her lungs with anticipation and a trace of fear, but her resolve only hardened, guided by a yearning to meet the fabled faes whose blessings promised to bridge the gap between peasant and prince. She pressed on, the forest floor pulsing with unseen life, and the distant murmur of running water beckoned her toward an embrace of secrets older than stone castles. Guided by the soft murmur of the stream, Eleanor followed its winding course until the trees opened onto a moonlit glade where patches of pale wildflowers trembled under the starlit sky. Here, 3 tiny figures drifted above dewy petals, each small shape crowned by silken petals or leaf tresses that shimmered like dawn's first rays. One sang in a voice low and melodic, each note like a droplet of clear dew, another laughed in soft bell tones that warmed the chill air, the third was silent but watched with curiosity bright enough to spark fire in the gloom. Eleanor paused at the edge of the clearing, her heart thundering, uncertain whether to approach or flee. Her grandmother's rune pendant pulsed against her chest, urging courage. She remembered the old tales, never startle a fae, always offer a gift of humility and truth. So she knelt upon the moss, bowing her head and extending her hand, palm open to reveal a single pressed violet, harvested at dawn to honor the phase of the first light. The fair sister stilled mid-air, the one with petal hair reaching out a slender finger to accept the flower. In that moment, time seemed to widen as Eleanor felt the ancient magic stir at her fingertips. With a gentle sigh, the fae with dew, silver wings stepped forward, her eyes reflecting the moon's pale fire, and spoke, "Child of clay and heart of hope, what is it you seek beneath these boughs?" Eleanor straightened, her voice firm as she replied, "My prince's favor, that I may stand at his side, known for strength of spirit and purity of heart." At her words, the second fae, crowned in twilight blossoms, raised her head, her laugh like tanglewood chimes. "We grant no easy wishes," she warned, "for true love is tempered by trials of courage, compassion, and wisdom." The third fae, wearing a cloak woven of dawn's first pink light, extended 3 tiny vessels of spun silver, one containing a drop of dew from the highest leaf, another a breath of pine, scented breeze, and the last a spark from a fallen star. "These gifts will guide you, but heed their truth. Corrupt one and your heart will shatter like ice under flame." Eleanor took the vessels with trembling fingers, each weight a promise and a warning that her path would measure her very soul. As the words settled in the hush beneath the ancient canopy, the faes circled Eleanor thrice, each trail of their diaphanous wings weaving threads of magic around her spirit. The dewdrop shimmered like a morning star, promising clarity when shadows of doubt crept close. The breeze, captured at twilight's edge, whispered of compassion's soft power to heal rifts wide as rivers. The starlight spark flickered with courage's fierce glow, unwavering against the darkest night. Sensing Eleanor's resolve, Uljusfae, the Dew sister, fluttered to rest upon her shoulder, bestowing a gentle warmth that spread through Eleanor's bones. Skimmingsfae, the twilight maiden, brushed her fingertips along the pendant at Eleanor's throat, threading ancient runes with new strength. Morganfae, the dawn spirit, touched Eleanor's brows with specks of light, fading as quickly as morning mist. When they finished, the fays rose together, voices harmonizing in a lullaby so sweet it might have tamed the fiercest wolf. Then, as silently as they had appeared, they vanished into the forest's sighing depths, leaving Eleanor alone with the gifts and the echo of their promise. Eleanor knelt among the wildflowers, her palms still warm beneath the dew vessel's gentle glow. The moon had climbed higher, and the glade seemed to pulse with magic that thrummed through her veins like an awakened heartbeat. She uncorked the first vial and let a single drop of dew roll across her tongue, instant clarity filling her mind. Doubts she had carried, of her low birth, her unadorned gown, her simple manners, dissolved like frost under sunrise. With a steady hand, she uncorked the second vessel and breathed in the twilight breeze. Compassion flooded her senses, and she sensed the unspoken longings and fears of every creature, human and fey. Finally, she released the star's spark into her heart. A warmth blossomed in her chest, fierce and unyielding, forging courage out of her tremor. When the final wisps of starlight faded, Eleanor rose, transformed not by vanity but by an inner glow that surpassed the fae's promise. Arms outstretched, she faced the shadowy trees, ready for the trials to come, knowing the first encounter was but the threshold to a destiny woven by magic, will, and the promise of true love. As dawn's first light filtered through the boughs, Eleanor retraced her steps along the mossy glade, every shadow now rendered gentle by the fae's gifts. The quiet hum of waking birds greeted her as friend rather than foe, and the forest floor, strewn with copper leaves, felt like a welcoming tapestry beneath her feet. Warmth lingered in her bones, and where fear might have stirred, she instead felt unshakable balance. She whispered a soft prayer of thanks, knowing the fays watched from realms unseen. Each step towards the village flame tipped her resolve like a blade reforged in celestial fires. Though the fields would still brace under the weight of frost, and the castle gates loomed distant and forbidding, Eleanor carried within her a truth that dwarfed any fortress walls. Armed with clarity, compassion, and courage, she vowed to meet her prince's challenge with a heart made luminous by fae-kindled light. Thus began the next chapter of her journey, the true test awaiting beyond the forest's edge. Eleanor emerged at the village gate just as dawn painted rooftops rosy gold. The dewdrop clarity sharpened her vision, you could see the wood's edge from here, its looming shadows softened by her newfound grace. She paused by the fountain at the town square where a wounded fox lay trembling, its fur matted with bramble. Compassion stirred within Eleanor's chest, urging her to kneel. She uncorked the twilight breeze and let its gentle current brush the fox's flank. The creature's amber eyes shone bright with relief as pain faded like mist at sunrise. Villagers gathered at the edge of the square, murmuring at the miracle. One kindly baker offered fresh bread, her crust still warm, and instead of receiving thanks, Eleanor knelt to bless the baker's hands, whispering of humble service and shared kindness. Word spread swiftly that a maiden walked with blessings unseen, and grudging respect washed over the crowd like spring thaw. In that moment, Eleanor understood that kindness would open doors that fear had slammed shut. Continuing toward the castle, Eleanor passed beneath colorful market stalls draped with tapestries, each merchant hawking wares from far-off lands, glass beads from Venice, perfumed oils from Istanbul, and exotic silks from distant kingdoms. A merchant, his face weary, struggled with a riddle carved into silver coin: what spark burns brightest when all else fails? The jingle of his purse held no answer. Remembering dewdrop clarity, Eleanor examined Thetelby. The lantern light that flickered in her palm. The spark of hope, she replied softly, eyes alight with conviction. The merchant gasped as the coin slid free from the puzzle box, revealing a small hidden gem. Gratitude glinted in his eyes as he pressed a gold florin into her hand, but she refused. Wisdom demanded no payment where truth was shared freely. As she walked on, the merchant bowed low, and villagers whispered, "Let her wisdom guide us." Reaching the castle's iron gates, Eleanor found them barred by stalwart guards in polished cuirass. At the threshold, a guard sneered, insisting no peasant might pass without royal summons. Her heart pounded, but the star-spark's courage soared through her veins. She lifted her chin and recited in a clear voice every kindness she had offered and every kindness she would continue to offer her prince and kingdom. She spoke of healing wounded beasts, of guiding lost travelers, and of wisdom bright as morning dew. The guards exchanged uneasy looks, their day-long boredom replaced by curiosity and awe. One removed his helm, his armor clinking, and said, "Your courage precedes you, maiden. Enter, and let the prince judge for himself." As the gates groaned open, Eleanor felt the weight of witnesses behind her, and the conviction that her spirit, tempered by compassion and wisdom, would carry her forward. In the courtyard, pennons of azure and silver fluttered above marble fountains, while courtiers paused mid-stride to gape at the traveling maiden. Each breath felt like a challenge as Eleanor crossed the polished stones, her cloak trimmed with simple embroidery that recalled her village roots. She sensed the star-spark flicker within her, urging boldness. She paused before the grand steps leading to the throne room, where Prince Anders awaited beside his advisors. The bright morning sun glinted off blade and jewel alike as Eleanor lifted her voice above the hush, recounting the mercy she had shown, the wisdom she had shared, and the courage she had summoned. Silence fell heavy before it broke into scattered applause, and then, quietly, a single, respectful bow by many of the gathered nobles. That gesture, small but true, felt more triumphant to Eleanor's heart than any royal decree. She realized that no enchantment could outweigh deeds done in kindness. Standing at the foot of the grand stair, Eleanor gathered the three vessels in one hand, the dewdrop, the breeze, and the star's spark. A hush descended when she approached Prince Anders, his curious gaze steady upon her humble form. She bowed once, then spoke of gratitude for his kingdom and her wish to serve it with an open heart. As she spoke, the Fae's whispers tickled her senses, guiding her tone and purpose. The dew's clarity kept her words earnest, the breeze's mercy softened her presence, the star's flame lent her voice strength unfettered by fear. When silence fell again, Prince Anders extended his hand, eyes alight with new understanding. "Rise, Eleanor of gentle heart," he said. "Your gifts surpass any courtly artifice." A cheer rose from the courtyard that echoed through banners and turret alike, sealing the power of deeds over lineage. Word of Eleanor's deed spread like sunlit mist through the castle halls, reaching the ears of Prince Anders as he ascended the throne chamber's ivory stairs. Courtiers paused, their whispering hush broken only by the prince's steady steps. When Eleanor entered, she carried no ornate gown, only the glow of deeds behind her like a soft halo. As the grand doors closed, torchlight flickered across carved tapestries retelling ancient battles and triumphs, a silent reminder that this test would not rely on lineage or gold but on character laid bare. Anders regarded her with thoughtful calm, his golden cloak sweeping the marble floor. He spoke at last, "Eleanor, you have healed, guided, and braved where many dare not tread. But your final challenge lies within this chamber. You must speak truth of your heart and intention beneath these vaulted arches." At his words, the Fae's gifts flickered inside her. She stepped forward and, in a clear voice, recounted every moment of compassion shown, every piece of wisdom shared, every act of courage summoned. As she spoke, the very air seemed to pulse, weaving her words into the tapestry's silent stories overhead. When she finished, silence stretched until the hush of centuries broke with a single, resounding breath from Prince Anders. He rose and offered her a delicate crown of intertwined vines and moonlit blossoms, an unexpected choice over gold and jewels. "This crown," he said softly, "speaks of a heart that values all life, great and small, and wields power with gentleness. Will you stand by my side as princess, not for your station but for the kindness, wisdom, and courage that shape a true leader?" Eleanor, her eyes glistening with tears of awe and joy, bowed her head. "I will serve with all that I am," she whispered, her voice steady as the promise of dawn. A cheer rose from the assembled court as Anders placed the crown upon her head. The Faes, unseen yet ever present, wove threads of moonlight around the royal pair, sealing their bond in enchantment wrought by virtue. In that moment, the ancient curse that once guarded the prince's heart shattered like brittle ice under the spring sun. As torch flames brightened and banners swayed, Eleanor stepped into her new role, not as a peasant girl of humble beginnings but as a princess whose reign would be guided by the gifts of the three Faes. And so, in that storied Swedish castle, love triumphed not by birthright or beauty, but by the power of a good heart and the blessings of three fairy sisters. As torchlight faded and dawn crept through high-arched windows, Eleanor stood beside Prince Anders on the palace balcony overlooking the awakening kingdom. Their hands intertwined, she felt the dew's clarity still steady her thoughts, the breeze's compassion guiding her spirit, and the star's spark glowing in her chest like an ember reborn. Below, villagers and nobles alike bowed in genuine respect, no longer bound by rigid protocol but united by the promise of a kinder reign. In the soft morning light, Eleanor realized that the greatest enchantment lay not in fairy gifts but in actions inspired by love and empathy. The lessons of the three Faes, courage to act when fear beckons, kindness to heal when wounds run deep, and wisdom to speak truth in times of uncertainty, would guide her rule alongside Anders. Together, they would walk the forest paths, listen to the whispers of ancient oaks, and remember that true royalty is measured by heart. And so, with kingdom and forest bound as one, Eleanor's humble origins became the very foundation of a reign shaped by grace, forging a legend that would echo through Swedish lore for generations. The first light of dawn stretched across the Crimean sky like a promise. White sails caught the awakening breeze, and the air smelled of salt and blooming mimosa. Anna Sergeyevna, recently arrived for a quiet seaside holiday, felt an unfamiliar flutter in her heart as she stepped onto the pebbled promenade. At 52, she had grown accustomed to measured days, polite society's endless expectations, the gentle rituals of family gatherings, and the unsaid limits placed around a widow's life. Yet here, on this sunlit morning, she carried her small continental dog in her arms, its soft fur warm against her gloved cheek, and she allowed herself to imagine something more, something uncharted and alive. Behind her, Yalta's elegant villas huddled on the hillside, their verandas offering spectacular views of the sapphire sea. Gentle laughter drifted from a nearby tea house, where visitors gathered around steaming samovars, discussing the latest journal articles and exchanging polite glances. Anna found the scene both comforting and confining. She drew a steadying breath, smoothing the folds of her travel coat, and continued along the shore, letting the rhythm of lapping waves guide her steps. As she neared a secluded stretch of beach, her dog strained at its leash, its small paws scrabbling for purchase on the cool stones. Anna paused to adjust the ribbon at its collar, and in that instant, a man emerged from the haze of morning. He carried himself with quiet purpose, dark hair tousled by the breeze, a woolen coat thrown casually over one shoulder, and a sketchbook tucked under his arm. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, time itself stilled. The dog barked, a sharp, delicate note, and Dmitry Gurov offered Anna a tentative nod. No one on that promenade knew then how irrevocably their lives would change. Anna had come seeking anonymity and repose. Dmitry believed himself accomplished in the art of polite conversation and discreet liaisons. Yet in that fleeting moment, his shy good morning met by her gentle, curious smile, they discovered that chance could turn even the calmest heart into something unpredictable and unforgettable. Neither spoke as they passed, words seemed too fragile to bridge the sudden, shimmering space between them. But fate, as it often does, had begun to write its own tale. Anna continued her seaside ritual for several mornings thereafter, convinced the stranger was a mere mirage conjured by her imagination. Yet each day he appeared at the same hour, sketchbook in hand, pausing to capture the play of light on water, the rolling waves, and occasionally, Anna herself, though she never quite caught him mid-sketch. The quiet consistency of his presence unsettled her guarded heart. She felt watched, admired, but also gently understood in a way no acquaintance from home ever had. The way her dog nudged at her boots for attention. A married man accustomed to brief romances during city seasons, he had never been inclined toward permanence. Yet here, by the Black Sea, he sensed something profound. He began to practice small courtesies, offering his sketchbook for her inspection, presenting his latest charcoal drawings of local fishermen and sunlit villas. Anna, startled by his attention, found herself grateful for his kindness and intrigued by the depth in his dark eyes. Their conversations blossomed slowly, carefully avoiding gossip and scandal. They shared opinions on Tolstoy's latest novel and whispered theories about Pushkin's inspiration. At first, Anna spoke in cautious phrases, as if testing whether it was safe to open her heart. Dmitry guided their dialogue with gentle curiosity, never pressing, always attentive. In that fragile space between words, they discovered a freedom neither had known, the freedom to be wholly themselves, unshackled from social expectation. Days turned to weeks, and the seaside resort began to buzz with summer's peak, elegant balls in grand hotel ballrooms, tea dances beneath paper lanterns, and bustling promenades thronged with fashionable visitors. Yet Anna and Dmitri found solace in hidden corners, a secluded bench beneath a grove of fig trees, a quiet terrace overlooking the sea at dusk. Under one such evening's golden haze, Dmitri confessed that returning to Moscow, to his wife and routine, seemed suddenly impossible. Anna's heart trembled with both fear and hope. Could she dare to imagine a life beyond duty, beyond the polite constraints of society? Their shared glance, heavy with unspoken longing, answered them both. Love, once kindled, could not easily be extinguished. Every stolen moment deepened their bond. Handwritten notes passed under tablecloth folds, urgent whispered meetings framed by crashing waves, and the quiet comfort of arms entwined beneath the stars. But the world around them demanded explanation. Rumors stirred among hotel staff. Anna's maid lodged cautious warnings about propriety. Dmitri wrestled with guilt. His family, his reputation, the life he had built loomed large. Yet none of it outweighed the brilliance he saw in Anna's eyes or the steady rhythm of their shared heartbeat. Here, on the edge of the sea and society's boundaries, they discovered that true love often asks for courage far beyond what one believes oneself capable of giving. In the golden haze of late summer, Yalta's resort life reached its apex. Gilded carriages rolled along the arcaded promenade, orchestras played waltzes beneath draped pavilions, and society's elite scandalized themselves with whispered gossip. Anna and Dmitri navigated these glittering temptations with anxious grace. Each grand ball felt like a lavish stage where their secret was the only script that mattered. They wore polite smiles while their hearts pounded beneath silk and velvet point. One afternoon, Anna lingered in the hotel's rose garden, her fingertips brushing dew-laden petals. She read Dmitri's final letter of the week, carefully folded parchment smelling of ink and longing. His words told of nights spent staring at her portrait in his sketchbook, drawing her expression over and over as if it could bridge the distance between them. A distant brass band began to strike the opening notes of a polka, and Anna's chest tightened. She knew each meeting carried risk. Discovery would mean ruin, shame that would echo through family circles for years. Yet in that moment, the scent of roses, the cadence of the music, and the memory of Dmitri's tender gaze wove together into an irresistible tapestry. She rose from her seat, resolute, and made her way toward the stone archway leading to the concert lawn. There, Dmitri appeared through the shifting crowd, his coat draped casually, his sketchbook forgotten at his side. They shared a quiet smile that spoke of all the things they dared not say aloud. In the golden haze of late summer, Yalta's resort life reached its apex. Gilded carriages rolled along the arcaded promenade, orchestras played waltzes beneath draped pavilions, and society's elite scandalized themselves with whispered gossip. Anna and Dmitri navigated these glittering temptations with anxious grace. Each grand ball felt like a lavish stage where their secret was the only script that mattered. They wore polite smiles while their hearts pounded beneath silk and velvet point. One afternoon, Anna lingered in the hotel's rose garden, her fingertips brushing dew-laden petals. She read Dmitri's final letter of the week. Carefully they slipped away beneath the arch, hearts thrumming, to a shaded alcove where a discreet bench offered both cover and communion. Their hands met, fingers entwined, and for a precious hour, they spoke of possibility, of elopement, of homes left behind, of futures built on wild hope. Each word they exchanged thrilled with the weight of consequence. They knew the world demanded they choose, allegiance to duty or the tumultuous promise of love that defied every rule. When the hourglass emptied and they returned to the ballroom, Anna's cheeks burned with both fear and exhilaration. Dmitri offered his arm with a bowed greeting to the assembled guests, and none suspected the tumult beneath their calm facades. But each step toward the swirling dancers felt like walking a razor's edge. With every pirouette and stately turn, they held their breath, wondering whether society would continue to look the other way or whether their dream would shatter like sea glass beneath a careless wave. As summer waned, the sea breeze turned cooler, and the resort began to prepare for its seasonal closure. Suitcases stood packed on polished floors, and farewell balls shimmered with bittersweet splendor. Anna and Dmitri sensed the end approaching with both dread and determination. They spent their final days tracing familiar paths, the cliffs above the bay where daisies grew wild, the narrow lanes lined with pastel villas, and the hidden cove where waves whispered their timeless lullaby. One morning, before sunrise, they met at their first meeting place on the shore. The horizon glowed with pale rose and lavender, and the sea lay still beneath the sky's reflection. They stood side by side, listening to the soft rush of water against pebbles, each acutely aware that this hour might determine the shape of all their tomorrows. Anna held her dog against her chest, its small form trembling with anticipation. Dmitri looked out to sea, then back at Anna, his voice barely more than breath. "Will you go with me?" She felt the weight of propriety pressing on her shoulders like a heavy cloak, yet her heart surged with a fierce clarity she had never known. Memories of her quiet life in the countryside, tea-time calls, polite neighbors, dutiful family, faded beneath the urgent promise of what lay beyond. With trembling resolve, she nodded. In that moment, the sea itself seemed to hold its breath. Their clasped hands set the world in motion, an uncharted course of choices that would challenge every assumption about the life an English widow ought to lead. They arranged passage on a small coastal steamer heading north, forging letters of explanation that spoke of health and rest rather than truth. Under the watchful eyes of morning's first fishermen, they boarded side by side, hearts beating with equal measures of hope and trepidation. The little dog settled at Anna's feet, as if sensing the enormity of their decision and the uncertain seas ahead. As the vessel pulled away from Yalta's quay, Anna pressed her hand against the railing, the wind catching her hair. Dmitri stood close, his arms steady around her waist. They watched the Black Sea recede, its gentle expanse transforming into a ribbon of memory behind them. Ahead lay uncertain waters and an unknown shore. Yet for the first time in both their lives, they moved forward together, guide. By a love that had blossomed in secret and refused to be denied, beyond Yalta's gilded promenades and moonlit alcoves, Anna and Dmitri discovered the true depth of their devotion. Their journey north was both literal and symbolic. Every mile brought new challenges, whispers of scandal, abandoned fortunes, the uncertainty of starting anew in a world that prized convention above passion. Yet each hardship revealed the power of their choice. In a modest cottage far from social scrutiny, they forged a life built on shared dreams, morning coffees on a frost-kissed veranda, evenings spent by the hearth reading Russian poetry, and quiet walks through birch groves where Anna's laughter mingled with the rustle of leaves. They learned that forbidden love, once ignited, demands both sacrifice and courage. Dmitri wrote letters of farewell to his past, sealing them in a box of charcoal sketches he no longer needed. Anna embraced the unfamiliar rhythms of her new world, her dog at her side as steady a companion as her husband's unwavering devotion. Together, they weathered winters of doubt and springs of renewal, discovering that love's greatest triumph lies not in grand declarations but in the steady, shared resolve to withstand every storm. In time, their story wore new garments, contentment, respect, and the gentle glow of memory rather than scandal. The waves of the Black Sea faded into the horizon of their recollection, but the promise born on Yalta's shore continued to resonate in every sunrise they greeted together. Their affair, once whispered in the hush of dawn, became the foundation of a partnership that defied expectation, proving that the heart's true journey often begins when the world demands we walk a different path.